Hey guys, welcome back to our second episode of our podcast, Home Away from Home. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the army.
The military service.
Yeah, mandatory military service.
Mandatory. Compulsory.
Compulsory.
It is mandatory as well.
Yes, that's true. Basically, in Israel, at the age of 18, everyone has to enlist in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force. And from there, we each get our own jobs or positions. And every person goes through a very different journey in the army. That's for sure.
Yeah, completely. And I mean, not everybody even joins the army. In the end of the day, you have to be physically able to join the fighting units. And you have to be mentally able to join the army.
In regular non-combat.
Just
also.
Completely, like combat and non-combat.
Mm-hmm.
You go through a set of different tests.
Evaluations.
Evaluation. So I know it from the side of the Israeli kind of side. You probably know it from
the
like
Ole
a shorter,
side.
from the Ole side.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode.
Back. So the army, interesting topic.
Interesting, yeah. We felt that should be one of the first topics we speak about.
Especially since it came up a lot in our first episode.
Completely, and we wanted to dedicate a full episode. We're probably going to talk about it again in the future.
It'll definitely come up.
It's going to come up a lot because it's, it's a very big emphasis on the life of everybody in Israel. I mean, it's a
basic thing of society here.
It's very connected to, the way education works in Israel. So you go to kindergarten, you go to school, to mid school, high school, and then you go to the army. It's like...
And then everything kind of becomes a branch of the army after that.
In a way.
Like
Not
you can
exactly.
always... I feel like you can always find something that reminds you of the army even in work. Especially where I work, but that's very specific. But in general, like, let's say you go to... officers, you have to do a course, and also there's jobs that you have to do a course, and it's kind of like the same structure. Completely,
because an officer, in the end of the day, in the military, in the army service, he's a manager. That's pretty much what he does.
Yeah,
it's a managing position, and a lot of the officers in the military, when they get released, they go to the civilian life as managers
because of
levels.
That experience.
Because of the experience that they receive in the army. So I'm gonna start. You're gonna start. What are we doing?
I'll start.
Okay, go.
I enlisted in the army in a way that's not very conventional, if you can call it that. I joined the army through Gal and Moishe. We had a special day actually for our Tzav Rishon, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is just a day where you get tested. It's like psychological tests and.
It's the first evaluation.
Yeah, but
it's
we also have...
medical and psychological.
Yeah, there's the medical part, but we also have Yom HaMea, which is...
Which is for the females.
Yeah, which is for girls. We have a day where we go through a bunch of courses, physical or mental, which basically open up or close certain jobs for us in the army later on.
Fitting by your criteria.
Yeah.
So the Tzav Rishon actually gives you a set status...
Yeah.
You can call it medical, physical, and mental status.
Exactly.
For the army to kind of dictate where your options are to go and serve in the military.
Absolutely.
Yom HaMea is the day where you kind of try and figure out with your status which is the best position fit for you, and that the army can take advantage of you and your full potential to advance itself. Obviously, it's a system that wants its best people in the right places.
Right. Very well said. So we had a separate day for Gal and Moishe for the Tzav Rishon. When you start those tests, there is a Lishkat Giyus, which is just a place where you go as a civilian to get tested for the army. So we did the Tzav Rishon. I started out in Chilutz V'Hatzala, which is a search and rescue.
Search and rescue brigades.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I started as an instructor. I initially thought that it would be the job that was right for me. I don't want to say I thought it would be a good job because it implies that it's not a good job, and I think every job is good in its own way.
I mean, you have to understand that our podcast is very subjective. We're talking from our point of view, so...
It just wasn't good for me. So, I started off in that unit. I met really awesome people. But at a certain point, I didn't feel like I was in the right place. So, after a lot of balagan...
Balagan, that's another word that we need to bring up.
Yeah, we have to talk about that.
Yeah, okay, so wait, let's talk about balagan.
Okay, balagan is when you make a fuss, like a ruckus, a mess.
It's like a big mess. It's like an extreme kind of mess.
Yeah, you make a mess.
It's an epic mess.
Yeah. Basically, I made a mess because I went to a lot of high-ranking officers demanding pretty much that they take me out of the unit, because in the Army it's very difficult to get moved from one unit to the other, because the Army, just as a system, doesn't want to deal with things that they don't think is important. And in the Army, no one really cares about what you want. And manpower.
The Army is not important.
No.
And that's one of the downfalls of the Israeli military.
Well, that's a downfall of having a mandatory service, because...
That's a downfall of every bureaucratic system. I don't know if I've said that right.
Bureaucratic
system. So manpower is always the least of its concerns.
Yeah.
And that's why big systems fail in promoting the right manpower. A lot of officers and managers in different systems usually are the right people, but you probably, and you have to assume, you've got a lot of people who are just, kind of, the system beat them. And Absolutely. They could have been much better and in much better places.
I went to officers course and I left because I just felt like
wait, we're going to get there. You can't do that.
Well, I had to bring it up because you said...
Okay. Let's go back.
Going back, so I made balagan. I made a mess, basically demanding from high-ranking officers that they take me out of the unit because, like I said, the system doesn't really care about what you want. So, as we said in our previous episode, if you want something, you have to go and get it yourself, which is what I did. I went to the Bakum, which is a base where they give civilians their positions in the army before they become soldiers. And I wanted to go into an intelligence unit, but because I hadn't lived in Israel a year still, I didn't have a high-ranking security classification. So I wasn't able to go into that, but I had a friend who was in a different unit that was coordination of government actions in the territories, which is super long, but it's not similar to intelligence, but it also deals with a lot of what happens in the shtachim.
The unit deals with the civilians of the Judah and Samaria population. So
we deal with the Palestinians.
So the Arab civilians of the Judah and Samaria
in the West Bank.
Areas.
So I went to that unit, not really knowing fully what it was about, but my friend who was in Gaza at the time told me that it's a very interesting unit. He recommended it to me, and I trusted his opinion. I totally went in blindly into the unit, and I believe everything happens for a reason, and when I went with it, it was like my gut that this was going to be the right decision. And in the end it was, which is pretty cool. So I did a course in Tzrifin, which is a base that doesn't exist anymore, actually. It was moved
down south.
Yeah, moved to the south, Irabadim, which is...
the city of educational quarters for the military.
It's basically a lot of bases put together, which is like a city. Yeah, where a lot of people go through their training. So I finished the course. I went to Hebron, which is in the West Bank. It's the biggest city in the West Bank.
Biggest Palestinian city.
Yeah, biggest Palestinian city, biggest Palestinian population.
It's also the only combined Jewish and Palestinian city today.
That's true.
There used to be a few, but from the Oslo Agreement, the only city that was left that's both Palestinian and Jewish is Hebron.
Yeah.
It's 97%
Arab
of the area is Palestinian.
Yeah.
Only 3% of the city is in the Jewish area.
Right.
And population-wise, it's 99.97% Palestinian and
Yeah.
like a very little percent Jewish.
It's definitely majority Palestinian.
The only thing about that is that the Jewish area there is the only full contact city, Jewish
With
city
Jewish and
with
Arabs.
and
Yeah.
that's why it has a very, very big amount of soldiers walking around the Jewish area.
Yeah. We do shmira there, which
Guard
is
duty.
a guard duty. And it's funny because we're just watching over such a small percentage of Jewish people there. It's crazy to think about how many people,
but
like
I mean-
how little people are still standing there and
Yeah.
living there.
But Hebron's like the heritage site for the patriarchs.
Yeah.
You know, it's our history is there. I mean, I fully
Absolutely.
understand why.
Ma'at ha'machpelah.
Completely.
So I served there. I had an amazing experience. I saw a lot of things that I wouldn't see had I not gone there.
For example.
Wow. Okay, this is weird to say, but I saw a lot of dead bodies, which is really weird to talk about, but it's a part of my service.
Part of what we do now.
Yeah, I saw a lot of attacks, כאילו חיסולים. I don't know how to say that. I saw a lot of terrorist attacks getting...
Terrorist attacks?
Yeah. There was a Palestinian girl who tried to stab a Gavnikit.
And you were there at the time?
We were there. We got there with the Shabak after they...
Neutralized her?
Yeah. I don't know how to say these things in English.
Neutralized. It's English.
I don't know. I forget. I honestly started forgetting.
We'll have a
words in English.
bilingual...
Yeah, we're going to have another talk about that. But yeah, so as weird as it is to say, I saw a lot of dead bodies in the army. I saw a lot of afsadim, like riots.
Wild riots. Like very violent riots.
Violent riots, throwing stones, burning tires.
Molotov cocktails.
Yeah, Molotov bottles, a lot of things that I never thought that I'd be exposed to. So definitely a lot of interesting things.
But what was your official duty in Hebron?
My job, I had a lot of things that I did on the side, but my main job was to basically accept or decline requests for entry permits to Israel from the Palestinian side.
And how did you guys do this? Like, do you have any guidelines?
Yeah, we get instructions from the Shabak or Shin Bet, which is the equivalent to the CIA.
The FBI.
No, the CIA.
The CIA is the Mossad.
I thought it was the opposite.
So it's the FBI because it's the
God.
federal police.
Okay, so I thought it was the opposite.
So the Shabak, the Shin Bet is like the FBI.
So the Shin Bet is the FBI, okay?
Yeah, most close, like the closest.
The closest equivalent that there is. Wow, all
they,
this time I thought it was the opposite.
There you go.
But life
we
is
learning
a lie.
together. So the Shin Bet or the Shabak is they police and they govern the intelligence and against federal terror. So it'll be Jewish, Arab, Palestinian. It doesn't matter. Anything that happens within Israel is the Shin Bet's duty to make sure that doesn't happen, or like no civilians get hurt.
Yeah.
On the intelligence side of things, the Mossad, on the other hand, is very similar to the CIA in the way they work outside of Israel.
They're outside of Israel
to protect Israel.
Yeah, there are people who only go outside of the country.
Yeah.
So we work with the Shin Bet, which, like we said, is equivalent to the FBI.
In a way.
In a way. And we get instructions from them basically telling us what we're allowed to accept, what we have to deny. We have a system that gives us a lot of information on all the Palestinian residents. And following all these rules, we decide whether or not to allow them. It's not just like, okay, come on, enter. No, it's not like that. We have strict guidelines. And it's very sensitive because especially during my service, there were a lot of terrorist attacks. And it's hard when you're living in a country that deals with this on a day-to-day basis to wake up in the morning and see people from the same origin as these people who are committing attacks and letting them into the country. It's really conflicting.
It sounds a bit weird the way you said it, so I'll explain just a bit more. That the majority of the people in these in the Palestinian territories, and we'll have a talk about this
Yeah.
as well, are from different tribes. So that's
There's
why
different cities.
so the Palestinians aren't just Sunni. So there'll be Sunni and Shia,
Yeah.
which is indifferent
It's
to
opposing opinions
other
in Islam.
indifferent to other countries and Arab countries. Palestinians aren't from the same so-called race. They come from different tribes before there were Palestinians, because they
Right.
only created themselves in the 1900s.
1930s? Before.
No, later.
Well, we only got in contact with them.
Yeah, but so just in short, so the Palestinians before, they were just Jordan didn't exist.
Jordanian citizens.
Yeah, but Jordan didn't exist either. So they were Egyptian and Bedouins and Syrians
And kind of Jordanian.
it was a lot of different
People from different
nomad
places.
Arabs that were around here. So they come from a lot of different backgrounds, but the most common denominator, like the thing that is most common for them all, is that they're from different clans. They're big families. And
Khamurot.
mamash.
Yeah.
So
That's the word for like clans in
for a clan,
Arabic.
khamura, yeah. So what they do is, for example, a cousin could go out and do a terror attack, and then the next day someone from the big family, you've got a family of 200, 300, 400 people that were like, they all have the same family name,
Yeah.
and he wants to enter Israel. So when you said,
And it's a
they come
problem.
from the same origin, it's a bit of a problem, because, this family name is the guy who did the terror attack yesterday.
Yeah.
How do you accept them in?
It's very difficult because it's one of the rules in the army that you're not allowed to mix politics into what you do.
Completely. The
And
military is supposed to be
A neutral,
apolitic.
it's supposed to be a neutral
Ground.
body, I guess, organization.
Yeah.
And that basically defies everything I did, because everything I did in the army was basically altered or related to politics. There's no way to escape it.
In a way.
Yeah. I mean, okay, classic example. When I was in the army, there was a shooting in Sarona Market, which is an area in Tel Aviv. And the two men who decided to... So these two men decided to go into Sarona in Tel Aviv and start shooting people. And
As a terror attack.
yeah, as a terror attack. And
Soda.
yeah, and I discovered that these two terrorists were from Hebron.
Which isn't surprising considering the amounts of people that
Yeah.
live in Hebron.
It's most likely that they'll come from there. And this was around Ramadan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so Ramadan's the month of fast for the Arabs. Or
And,
the Muslims, not the Arabs.
Yeah, for Muslims. And they usually, the Palestinian citizens, residents, usually asked to go to Jerusalem and pray.
So during the Ramadan, Palestinians have special requests, and they usually gain special
Permits
to go to Jerusalem and pray at the mosque.
Yeah. Zav.
What's it called?
It totally slipped my mind right now. Also.
So the stone mosque on top, because
Yeah.
the golden dome isn't actually a mosque.
Nachon.
So it's the
Right.
stone dome, which is just beside it.
And
Al-Aqsa.
yeah, Al-Aqsa. Right. Okay.
There we go.
Totally slipped my mind. And I was in charge of all the permits for Ramadan that year. And since I was based in Hebron, so I'm in charge of all the permits that come from there. And I had to, rescind. I don't know what word to use.
What's the word in Hebrew?
Levatel. So
To decline.
yeah, I had to decline 30,000 permits that I worked on for 3 days. And it was really frustrating because, first of all, because I worked on 30,000 permits without sleep for 3 days. But it's also frustrating because despite the political situation, which is controversial and awkward and difficult to understand, at the end of the day,
Not so difficult.
I mean, it is kind of difficult when you live through it, for both sides, I guess, because at the end of the day, I think we need to coexist, to try, in the 70s, I guess.
Fair enough. I mean, we'll have an episode that will deal with the
we'll get
Palestinian
into that.
story, so that's for another time.
Yeah. So it is difficult when we're living in a kind of, I don't know how to explain it, like tense political situation. And at the end of the day, I know that these people who are trying to enter the country, most of them are just regular people who want to live their life and go about their day. And the problem is the minority that is so strong that goes out and carries out these attacks. So that's what kind of irritates me. It's like this small group of people ruin it for everybody. So in a way, yeah, I guess I can kind of sympathize. But it is very conflicting. It's you go about your day with like this dissonance, if that's the word. Because it's like conflicting with politics and your job.
And that's where you finished your service throughout, like the end of your service, you were in Hebron?
Yeah.
You said something about officers course?
Yeah, I wanted to go out to officers course, and I just realized that I wasn't fit for it. Like, it wasn't for me.
Did you want to go out from Hebron region?
No, I actually wanted to go back. But I also discovered that it's...
No, did you want to go to the officers course from the Hebron region, from the job over there, or from before?
No, from Hebron.
Oh, okay.
So I just realized that it wasn't really for me. It's a lot of hypocrisy in officers course, especially in my unit. There you meet a lot of two-faced people, and a lot of people who will do anything they need to get what they want, even if it means stepping on other people.
Within the unit?
Yeah, that was just my experience. I didn't really...
So you had a bad experience with the officers above you, and that's why you decided you
Actually,
didn't want
no.
to go?
It wasn't even the officers above me. It was the people with me in the course.
So beside you?
Yeah. And that's just my personal experience. I know a lot of officers who are amazing people, but not every unit has a very welcoming officers course, and it just wasn't like that.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
And that's where you finished your service?
Yeah, I finished in Hebron, and my service was difficult at times, but overall, I really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot, and I'm happy I did it.
And did you find that there were like very major events, like big events throughout your service that were kind of remarkable or left a sign or a mark in you?
Mostly the terror attacks that I saw, or the riots. There were a few of them, but it wasn't something I saw all the time. And that's where I learned a lot about the Palestinians and their culture and what they go through. And it opened my eyes to the situation in a way that I wouldn't really be able to see if I didn't even make Aliyah, if I didn't go to the army. It's so easy to sit back and judge Israel when you're living in a different country and basing your opinions off the media that's biased anyway. But when you live here and you experience things on your own, it definitely changes your perspective. And you just discover a lot of different aspects of Palestinian life, let's call it. And it's just a very unique experience. It's hard to explain in words. It really is.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But I had a lot of fun.
Cool.
And you were a combat soldier.
I was.
Okay, let's hear about that.
Oh, so, as I said before, I grew up in a religious society.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in the 8th grade, so that's 2008, I was, 15? We moved from the Golan,
Which is the north.
The north, the Golan Heights, to the Jerusalem district. We lived in a place by the name of Efrat, which is a
settlement.
semi-religious village settlement over the Green Line. It's just south of Bethlehem.
Very close to the West Bank.
It's in the West Bank.
Well, yeah.
So we lived in Efrat for a couple of years, and then we moved to a village just across the road by the name of Neve Daniel, which is the highest peak in the region. It's got a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful view from there all the way to Tel Aviv, Hadera and Gadera. You
Wow.
can pretty much
So you can see everything.
You can see the majority of the beach of Israel, and during the winter, it's always snowing there.
Oh,
So like
really?
it's always 2 degrees colder than Jerusalem, and Jerusalem's pretty cold.
Very cold.
So it's amazing.
Wow.
It's one of the most beautiful places in Israel, really. There's like a beautiful peak there where you can see everything, and it's amazing.
I miss snow so much.
Yeah. Anyway, so while in Efrat, one of my in the religious educational system, your teachers are your religious teachers as well.
Religious studies.
Yeah,
Teachers?
so they
Okay.
teach you religious studies and they teach you
Regular subjects.
regular subjects. So one of my rabbis, one of my teachers, was an ex-officer in the military.
Mm-hmm.
He was a captain in the 890th Brigade of the paratroopers, battalion, sorry, of the paratroopers. And he just said to me, you know, he was kind of very idealistic, and one of his words they said to me, they were very, very important to me at the time, were never mind the elite units, never mind all these special units, pilots course, or any of those. Go to the foot soldiers battalions where a lot of people don't want to go, and they have, you know, the worst kind of jobs to deal with the worst situations, the worst people, and just to spend nights and days in places that aren't so interesting, but someone has to be there and kind of protect the civilians, the Israeli civilians, wherever they are, and go there and become an officer, you know, lead people and bring people to a position where they understand that their job is important, even though they don't really want to be there.
So he wanted you to improve the system from the inside.
To improve the system from the inside. It was a very idealistic thought.
I like that mindset, though. I agree with it, and that's also why I wanted to go to officers course, to become a good officer and not have soldiers who go through another shitty service with shitty officers, because there's a lot. There's a lot of those. Yeah.
And at the time, I was accepted to the submarines course, which is considered an elite unit, and resigned.
Wow.
I signed off together, and then I had interviews to some special units, because if you get accepted into the submarines course, you get interviews to special units.
Did you regret,
Egos and Maglan? We'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
So Egos and Maglan, and I resigned those as well, and I made sure that I go to Kfir. The Kfir brigade was the youngest of the foot soldiers units.
Yeah.
And it had a very bad name at the time.
I remember that in my time in the army too, and I was in the army quite a bit of time after you.
So that was 2012. I joined in August 2012.
And I joined in 2014. So I think I joined when you were in your last year of service.
Well, in my last compulsory year.
Yeah.
And then I signed to go off to Kfir, gave up the other units I got accepted to, and went to Kfir. I joined in 2 weeks after my final exam in high school.
Wow.
Yeah, I had my final exam.
You didn't waste a second.
Nope. And straight away I got into the unit. I was pretty fit. I was, you know, leading within the first few weeks in my company that I was
doing. You did Makim?
And then straight away they sent me off to medics course.
Oh, okay.
As an ideal in my life, like an ideology, I like to take things that I'm afraid of and to deal with them head on.
That's a good approach.
At times.
At times, yeah.
So I was afraid of needles and blood.
No way.
And
you went to medics course?
And I went to medics course, and I nearly fainted the first time that
I would too. That's gross. You have to. I know that you have to inject each other.
So we inject each other, and like we.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we take these needles, and you have to reach a vein and kind of open the vein so you can have access to medication.
We just ate, so I don't know if I want to hear
we
all
had
the
a
details.
really good hamburger.
Yeah.
And a funny story. So while I was doing this medics course, the one time a police officer calls me when I was on my way home, and he says, "Soldier, come here 1 second."
A police officer?
A police officer.
Okay.
And I'm like, what did I do? What is it that I'm doing wrong?
What do you want?
And he's like, I see the marks on your arm. So you have these bruises.
Did he think you were injecting drugs?
Exactly. So you have these bruises on your, on your arm because you like pricking yourself 24/7.
Oh my God.
And not just you, other people are pricking it. And sometimes you do it with full kit and gear and everything on, so it doesn't go so well. So you've got these massive bruises because, someone cut you up from the inside. And then he's like, if you need any help, the system can help you. You don't have to deal with it by yourself. I'm like, I'm off to Bad Essa, which is the medics course
base, yeah.
And he's like, oh, you crazy lunatics, have a good day.
I mean, it's crazy that you guys are untrained, unprofessional, and
we became professional.
No, you became, but it's funny that it's crazy
it's
that
a very intense course.
You start unprofessional, obviously, and you practice on eeach other.
Yeah, you practice on each other.
That's wild.
I mean, the first time you do it, you don't do it on each other, obviously.
But still, in the beginning, you do.
But you always have you've always got a company leader next to you, and you've got a one of the sergeants.
Wow, honestly?
And it's pretty intense.
That's crazy. I would never be able to do that.
It's a 4-month course, and it's really, really intense.
Ugh.
And
I have chills. I can't listen to this.
Anyways, a week before we finished our course, it was Amudanan. What's the English? Pillar of Defense, right?
Yeah, Pillar of Defense.
So Pillar of Defense was a week before we finished our course. So they left us on another 3 weeks as a stretchers standby.
Do you want to give a little bit of info about Amudana?
Yeah, so what happened in Pillar of Defense is one of the Gazan art terrorists that planned and massacred many Israelis was pretty much killed. Not pretty much, he was killed by an Israeli target, strike package. And the Palestinians started shooting rockets into Israel. And as it started
as a response
becoming serious, the Israeli military started striking targets within Gaza. It was mainly a Air Force mission, but a lot of ground troops started preparing if we had to enter Gaza and take out all these rocket teams that are shooting at Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So we stayed on in the medics course base as a stretcher standby. That if we need to go to the border, rescue kind of injured people, look after them, make sure they stay alive.
And how long were you in the army when this happened?
This was 4 months after I joined the army.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
It was pretty intense.
You don't really fully grasp what's going on at that stage, so
it's pretty intense. We didn't even get our berets yet and stuff like that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So that's what we did. When I came back from the course, I finished the course as a what's a mitzvah?
Not valedictorian. That's in high school.
No, that's not in high school.
Wow. English block.
Yeah, English block.
I don't remember the
word.
We
have to.
This is such a big problem.
About the bilingual thing. Anyways, I got the highest mark in the course.
Wait, I want to look it up.
Look it up.
Okay. But keep going.
I'll keep going. So I got back to my unit. We did a month of the basic training. Just it was kind of done very fast, rushed for us. What's the word?
Well, Google gave me outstanding.
It is the outstanding mark.
It just doesn't sound as good in English.
It's not. Anyways, so we got the basic training, finished off with the marches. We were marching, it was, I think, 36 kilometers.
The Sakumta.
Yeah, so we did a 36 kilometer march and then 12 kilometers with stretchers open.
Wow, that's wild.
So since I wasn't fit enough by the military standards, because I didn't do the marches with my unit, so they couldn't...
Because you were in the course.
Exactly, so they couldn't say, okay, he's fit enough. they only let me join for the stretchers part.
Oh,
And
okay.
because I felt that I wanted to deserve to receive my beret, I did what they call a alum kashchoa, a black stretcher, which means that I stayed under the stretcher for the whole 12 kilometers and didn't swap out once.
So everyone swapped besides
So
you?
everybody swapped, and it was like,
Wow.
I think it was 50, I think it was like 70 kilos on the stretcher, and I carried it for 12 kilometers straight.
Wow. That's impressive.
To kind of like justify for myself that I'm receiving the
Wow.
beret. That was pretty cool. We finished the march, got the berets, and then we started our first, we call it a LAN, but it's like a dispatch kind of thing. You know,
Okay.
we get sent over to certain areas.
Shibutzim.
Kav.
Oh, okay. Okay, line. Okay, that took me a second.
Yeah,
If you said it in Hebrew, I would have understood it.
probably.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, so our first place that we were sent to was near Shechem, which in English is Nablus.
Right.
It's in Samaria. Well,
English.
it's in English.
I mean, yeah, but no.
It's in Arabic as well.
Right.
But Shechem is in Hebrew.
Right, I'm just saying it's funny that you said it's in English because Nablus basically is...
It's an Arabic
They just
name.
copied the word from Arab.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like Jerusalem is Yerushalayim.
I know. It just sounds funny because you're like, in English it's Nablus. It's like, yeah, that's English.
Okay.
I don't know, that just sounded funny to me.
Fair enough. Anyway, so we got to Shechem, and we were in a place by the name of Tapuach, which is a Jewish village, settlement. We had a lot of violent riots there, and it's the first time that I experienced Molotov cocktails thrown at me and stuff like that.
Fun.
Fun. It's the first time that I, as a medic, dealt with people dying in my hands. A lot of Palestinian accidents that we were the first ones around, and I'm a medic, so we were the first responders. We jumped there. The one time we reached a lady that the car wheel, like the driving wheel,
Steering wheel.
the steering wheel, sorry, penetrated her carotid.
No.
And she was pretty much bleeding out on us, and we just tried to do what we could and we couldn't, and she died there and then.
What was like the most traumatic thing? Was that, because that sounds pretty
I think that was pretty
unbeatable.
rough, because at one point while we were trying to keep her alive, all the liquids of her body just like
Oh
kind
my
of
goodness.
drained down.
Oh my goodness.
Like it didn't leave her body, it just went down, so like her torso was empty, it was kind of deflated, and it was just a weird situation to see, you know?
How did you feel? I mean, you were also really young. You kind of catapulted into that situation at a very early stage in your service.
So that was like 6 months after I was in my service.
How did you feel?
I don't know, it was like you dealt with it, you know, like
You kind of just put it behind you and
so
move on.
I was there with the EXO. I was always with him. We were what they call a chapak.
Mm-hmm.
It's a frontal command. You always have the company commander or the EXO, a medic, a driver, and a comms soldier.
So it's a tight unit of specific people
just
who are
the first
at the front.
Yeah, it's the frontal command of the company that they go around to every situation that demands the company respond, and he commands from there. So we're the first responders all the time. So if it's a combat situation or medical situation or anything else,
So you're there.
we there.
That's crazy.
Throughout that time, it was the first time as well that we used to go do arrests within Shechem, within Nablus, of terrorists. And the one time within Shechem, there's a close, what they call a Machane Plitim,
Refugee
a
camp.
refugee camp, by the name of Balata. And it's very hard to maneuver within the refugee camps because they built very, very narrowly. Like cars can't go down the streets within the refugee camps. And that was the first time that I had a improvised grenade thrown at me.
Wow.
And it blew up, well, to my luck, on my helmet. Because I didn't hear from my left ear for 2 weeks after that.
Wow.
If it would have blown up, say, 20 centimeters down, I would have probably lost my hearing in my ear for life.
That's crazy.
So that was pretty insane. It was just a very kind of intense...
How did you deal with things like that? It's not something that you can understand really when you hear about it.
It's something that's rough to explain. It's something that you kind of... It depends a lot on your psyche, like the way you deal with it. You know,
Right.
each person to their own. The one medic that was within my company swapped with me. I went back to the platoon I was in, and he went into the frontal command instead of me for a time just before I went off to company leader course, which is course makim.
Mm-hmm.
And he was there while a Palestinian stabbed a Jew by the name of Evyatar Bronski, may zichro levracha.
Mm-hmm.
He stabbed him and then took his hand arm from him, his ekdach, his pistol.
gun.
Yeah, his gun. Fired at him, killed him, and then a border policeman shot him, this Palestinian, he shot him 12 times but only hit the one bullet within his thigh.
Wow.
And my friend was there for the first time as a medic, and he kind of froze. He didn't know what to do.
You can't really prepare yourself
You can't.
for these situations.
You can't.
You
You
can
can't
do
prepare.
countless drills,
You
countless
can do countless drills, but you...
practices, but it doesn't really...
If someone doesn't motivate you at that second to kind of... Don't freeze, do what you need to do, and then deal with it, you freeze.
You have to be a really specific type of person to be able to shut out the pressure and just do what you have to do.
So that's why you have the officers, or at least the decent officers, that
Yeah.
can kind of back you up and be like, do your job now, do it right now, do what you need to do, I'm here to protect you, you do what you need to do, don't worry, we'll deal with it later.
That's such an intense situation.
And then, while this stage in my life is going on, my dad got a permanent position in Uganda where he works, and my mom decided that she's moving overseas with my two younger sisters. So from going home to Neve Daniel for the last 6 months to home with my mom and everything, you know, everything was nice. I became a lone soldier.
So really every aspect of your life changed in a very short amount of time.
Mamash.
Even your home situation
Within-
and your service. Just
Within 2 seconds.
yeah.
Yeah, and then becoming a lone soldier was something I had to deal with.
That's
I
a process.
Didn't really know what to do. Like, we set up a apartment for me in a kibbutz up north by the name of Afik, which is
Heard
just
of
on the
it.
Golan.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom moved overseas, and I went off to Kurs Makim, which was the platoon leaders course.
And how are you able to focus with all of these changes and all these things that you just experienced so recently?
Yeah, so, you know, like, you take in the army, especially within the akshara, the training phase,
Yeah.
you take day by day, you kind of deal with it on a daily basis. Like, you wake up in the morning, you know what goals you have to do, what missions you need to accomplish, and then you go to sleep at night, and you don't have much time to kind of think about what you went through. You know, you kind of have to deal with what's in front of you at the moment, what's in your 4 walls and your box, and exactly what you see, and only then you can, you know, go to the bigger picture.
But like,
and deal
didn't
with
anything ever just like build up or
it builds up
accumulate?
all the time, and I found that a lot of people that didn't have that support from home, for example, lone soldiers and stuff like that, get to a lot of situations where they want to give up. They want to, you know, throw everything away. And as I said before, I went to the Kfir Brigade, where the majority of the people didn't want to be there. It's people who had a combat profile, but they didn't want to be there. They didn't ask to spend the next 3 years within Judah and Samaria getting Molotov cocktails thrown at them. Within my company, we started out 60 people about, and we finished around 32.
Wow. that's a lot of people that left.
Yeah. That's the size of kind of how it happens. A lot of people leave because of medical claims. So people at times even purposefully hurt themselves. Like, I was present when someone slammed the door closed on his foot to get sick leave. That's something that I would never do. I wouldn't harm myself.
As much as I will suffer in a place, I will never get to the point where I physically harm myself.
But there were people who just, gave up.
Wow.
And just didn't want to carry on and did that.
I've heard a lot of stories of people doing that when I was in the army, but it's really crazy to think about. Like I said, I don't think I'd ever get to the point where I'd cause myself physical harm.
I didn't reach that point ever, but I've heard of people and I've seen people do it.
I think we're just very different from most people that go into the army. Right, I went by choice and you didn't, but you still wanted to do your best and do what you can. I could have
left and gone to Uganda and, not finished my military service.
Like, we both had options to leave, and we didn't, and I think that's what kind of, like, the fact that we wanted to stay helped us get through a lot of things in a way that other people couldn't.
The basic fact is that we both do it from an ideological point of view and from a mission. I went into the brigade because I chose to go there.
Right. We each had a point.
Not because I was accepted to some elite unit and fell from there.
Right. You chose to be there.
Yeah. Anyways, I did the course Makim, the platoon leaders course. I was on its stand there as well. Outstanding. Could be our new jingle.
Right. Outstanding.
Anyways, that's when I got my first platoon. And when I got my first platoon, they were just finishing their 8 months in the basic training. Mm-hmm. And they were moving over to the unit like I did when we went to Tapur.
So now how long are you in your service?
Now I've finished a year in my service. It was a 4-month course, the course Makia. As a medic, I had all kind of interesting situations there as well.
Like you said previously.
The one guy within the course, like a week before we finished, went to one of the, those machines, that give you the colas and all of those.
Vending machines?
The vending machines.
Wow.
Yeah, English situation. Anyway, so he went to purchase a Coke and he just started, he fell on the ground and started just like hitting everything and wobbling and shaking and it looked like an epileptic seizure. And, someone has to deal with it. And I was the only medic there. So we got the loaf of bread, that you always get for breakfast in the army. I put it around him that he won't break his arms or neck or whatever. So
what do you mean you put it around him?
Because it's a soft...
no, but what do you, physically, what do you...
Literally put it around him.
Okay.
Just got a lot of loaves of bread because we didn't have anything else to put around him. We got one of those sweatshirts and, fleece. Just put it around him, padded the whole area because he was just on the ground. And
so flailing.
Exactly. They won't break anything.
Okay.
And then when he calmed down, picked up his legs, brought him back into conscious.
So you really had a lot of situations where you experienced a lot of situations where you just had to shut off
and do what you had to do.
Your stress and your panic and just do whatever you had to do.
Completely.
Wow. It's like a reflex.
It's amazing, and I think I always thought that the medics course is something that every soldier, at least combat soldiers, should do. It's expensive and there's reasons not, but I thought that was one of the best things I could have done for myself.
Even as someone who was afraid of needles.
Especially as someone that was afraid of needles.
Okay.
Finished that, and then we went to the border with Gaza.
It doesn't get dull.
It doesn't get dull.
No.
And throughout this time, I was the only commander within the platoon because the officer was doing some course, the sergeant got released, and the 2 other commanders also got released. The one that I swapped got released. It was just a weird situation the first time.
A lot of changes.
In a platoon as a commander, there is no officer, there is no sergeant. there are no other commanders. I'm the single commander, officer, and sergeant when I'm only supposed to be a commander.
Balagan.
Balagan mamash. Moreover, I've got a platoon of Bainishim.
Wow. Okay.
Bainishim are...
Explain for the listeners.
Yeah, so within the military service, there's all kinds of special service
groups of people.
Groups, yeah. So, for example, if you make Aliyah after the age of 24, you serve
2 years.
2 years? 2
yeah.
years.
As a guy instead of 3. Well, back then it was 3.
It was 3 years. Yeah.
You would serve 2.
And Bainishim are actually religious Jews that throughout their high religious studies, they do 3 years of high religious studies in all kind of yeshivot, which is a religious high school, or not high school, but a diploma kind of.
It's the equivalent to high school?
No, it's
a
yeshiva is a place where you go to study Judaism.
There's really no other way to put it.
Like on the most basic to most complex level. Like they start and you can study at a yeshiva for 40 years.
Which is... I don't understand. I don't understand that.
But you can always carry on depthing within, the religion. So it's in a way equivalent to university.
I guess.
But
it's really weird to try to
do
even
a degree. It's
compare it to something.
You go and study
it kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't even think there's an equivalent to it.
Yeah. So you go and study at the yeshiva. Anyway, so they do 3 years at the yeshiva, and then they do a 2-year military service, and then they can carry on doing the yeshiva studies, and the rest of their so-called service will be in reserve. Now, there's 2 good things and 2 bad things about Bainishim, these guys. So the 2 good things are that they start together and they finish together. They're like a good group of people. They're all friends. They study together. The second good thing is that they all older than me. They all came at the age of 21 to 23. And
so they're easier to deal with.
And at the time, I was 19 years old.
Isn't that weird?
It was weird for the first day.
Okay.
And these are the 2 bad reasons. The 2 bad reasons is that they are all friends and all together and all older than me. So they have a hard time getting commands from me.
Which is understandable.
And I'm their commander. So the age has no play in this game. They have to listen to what I do because I'm a more professional soldier than they are. That's what it is within an hierarchy system.
The hierarchy doesn't regard age.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the second rough thing was that they all do finish together, so they don't really care. They've got 2 years. They'll do their 2 years, even if it's not on the best side. And they finish it and they go home.
And they don't really care about the quality of their service and what they do.
In a way. Now, this is very, very generalizing and going to a specific niche, but that's what I found with my soldiers. Now, I didn't say they were bad soldiers. They were just very rough, especially for me as a commander for the first time. Anyways, so besides learning how to command and a lot of, dealing with how to persuade people not from the power that I was bestowed, but from because I'm a human being and etc., is the way I believed. As a commander and a sergeant throughout my service, I didn't punish a soldier once. And the majority of my service, I was a commanding person. The one time we were at base on the border with Gaza, and we had a mortar attack on the base from Gaza. So you hear the sirens, it's 12 o'clock at night, I run out of my bedroom and, run to all of the soldiers' bedrooms from my platoon, from other platoons
to wake
as well.
Everyone up and
wake everybody out, kick them out. You've got 11 seconds to get to the safe area, or 10 seconds. And, I'm running and the sirens stop and the stuff hits and you hear it hitting near the base and everything. And then I run into the safe area near my base. And who do I see in the back of the safe area?
Who?
My company commander.
What?
The highest ranking officer in the company. I look at him, give him a kind of, you bastard look.
Aye.
I don't really care. I count my soldiers. I run to the other safe area. Who do I see there?
Who?
The EXO, the second in command.
Great.
That's about the time where I said, you know, do I really want to become an officer? Is this really what I want? If these are the officers that are in charge of me, when my own officer isn't even here to, you know, help me and support me, and decide that I'll be a much better officer than them, and it's something that I do want to do. And then after that time, I went off for officers course. In short, after 4 months, they kicked me off the officers course.
Oh, you told me this in university. This was a really annoying story.
This is for another time. We'll bring it up somewhere else.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Leave them hanging.
Leave them hanging. Go back to the battalion. It's the time that the 3 teenagers were kidnapped.
Right.
And they were kidnapped from our area. We now moved. We were in Gaza before. Now we are in Gush Etzion.
And this was the
before Tzuk Eitan.
Yeah, I was gonna say it wasn't preemptive, but it was the attack before.
So it was before, after this occasion is. This
is what caused pretty much.
Not exactly caused, but
the main event that catalyzed.
Preceded, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Preceded. That was the word I said. I was pre something. Yeah. Okay, preceded.
I was sent back to my battalion. My battalion commander, it was a brigadier. He put me in the frontal command with him. We found the 3 teenagers after.
Right, you told me this also at university.
For a very, very long time.
And how did you feel when you found, what went through your head when you found them?
Oof. We had the feeling that they wouldn't be alive. You know,
I mean,
that was the talk.
I think that was the general feeling.
That was the talk at the time. I think seeing the stretchers with the bodies that were a bit rotten was...
You can't describe that in words.
It's a very distancing feeling. You know, you feel very disconnected. On the one hand, it gives you the full force and understanding of why you are in the military, why Israel needs a strong army, what kind of savages we dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, you're like, how is it that I am in this position in my life right now at this moment and at this second? It's very weird.
What do you mean by that?
You can't grasp the reality.
Right.
It's a rough reality to understand.
We're kids, pretty much.
I was
doing this.
19 years old.
That's a lot for someone at that age to handle.
It was kind of insane.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy, you know.
It is.
I know the way you said it. It was it was kind of
But you had to deal with it, you know. The other option is to break down, and that's not much of an option, is it?
No, I also agree with your approach to that situation.
Yeah.
No, I can't imagine, it's hard to even sort of grasp what went in your head at that moment.
Because you have to understand, the whole army was
looking for them.
In Judah and Samaria. We were literally walking in places that a month before we couldn't even reach as a military without being attacked by Molotov cocktails and stuff like that. And we were flipping over rocks within these fields and within these neighborhoods and literally scanning the ground with our hands to look for remnants
yeah,
of these guys. We were really hoping to find them alive, and at least one of them, you know.
I remember hearing about this when I was still in the States, and it's difficult because obviously you want to think and believe that that you're gonna find them living, but you know that it's just not.
We were hoping they were doing it as as a card to release these terrorists in the Israeli jail or something, but and that's something that before you said about Hebron and what you found out about the Palestinian people is, you learn that the majority are just brainwashed from a very young age to just hate.
They're uneducated, they're brainwashed.
Some of them, not all of them, but they brainwashed. Even the educated are brainwashed to hate.
I know in Hebron they're uneducated, and that's why it's easy to manipulate them. A lot of people in Hebron are illiterate. They can't even read and write in Arabic.
And even that is a weak excuse for convincing people to love death. And that's the biggest difference. And they say it, they say we love death.
Of course.
And we cherish life. They cherish death. It's such a distant...
It's crazy.
...mindset that you say, now's my time to protect my nation. That's kind of what leads you. Anyways, so straight after that, it's Tzuk Eitan, which in English was... Pillar of Defense. No, that's Sofer Tzukah. No, that's Amud Anan.
Yeah. Wow, I know this.
Tzuk Eitan.
I'm having another blackout. Protective Edge.
Protective Edge.
There we go.
Protective Edge. So Protective Edge started. We are in a Kfir battalion. Our speciality is during Samaria, is close quarter combat. We are sent to Hebron. We swap units in Hebron that go down to Gaza to enter, and we feel very bad about the situation where we are infantry soldiers and we're doing a policing job stuck in Hebron while all the other infantry units are, down south doing what infantry units need to do.
But understand that you're also carrying the burden of being the person who discovered the bodies. I think it would be a little too much.
I mean, that's not what we saw and what we thought at the time. We were thinking, we infantry soldiers, we need to do what we need to do.
Right.
And straight away, when Tzuk Eitan started Protective Edge, I went into a new platoon as a sergeant with a guy that was the same recruit as me. We were together within the first platoon when we started the army, etc. And he finished off his officer's course. He was one course before me. So he finished the course. It's an 8-month course. I was kicked off after 4 months. And I just became a sergeant because we finished the mission with the boys. So he became the officer, I became a sergeant. We had 3 commanders under us, and we entered a platoon that had around 7 soldiers at the time. The rest were home, sick leave, sitting in jail for all kind of things.
Wow.
Just random. The soldiers weren't there. Everybody was in his place. Before we arrived at this platoon, the guys were just scattered everywhere.
All over the place.
And there was just a lot of stuff with them that didn't go well. We arrived at the platoon, and our main goal, me as the sergeant and the officer as the officer, was, besides dealing with Protective Edge now, we want to strengthen this platoon and make the guys understand what they're worth.
And you're doing this in the midst of a mifza.
Exactly. So we are both lone soldiers. We get a bit of a higher salary. We take from our salary and we buy all kind of spray paint and equipment like balaclavas for the soldiers, and we get decent equipment for everything. We collect decent equipment from all kind of bases that people forgot it, etc., etc. And by the time we finished Protective Edge, every one of my soldiers had a bag with all the release items they need. So when you sign up to the army, they sign you on all kind of equipment,
right.
Your vest, your
helmet,
etc., etc. So when I arrived at the platoon, they didn't have anything.
How?
They lost equipment with the years.
Okay.
So what I did is I organized that each of them will have a bag for the release with all the equipment, with the knee pads, the helmets, the water canisters, everything. We had our own patches. We printed patches for our unit.
So it was just really to get the morale up.
We got the morale up, and when I finished there, which we'll reach soon in the story, it's taken too long.
It's all good.
When I finished there, we had 22 soldiers.
From 7.
From 7.
That's pretty amazing.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And
It's 3
that
times
was
as
my
much.
goal that I went into the army with. I wanted to make sure that the soldiers underneath me know what their worth is. They will arrive at the base with a smile on their face and leave the base at the end of the second weekend with a smile on their face, feeling, we are doing good. We are protecting.
We're doing something.
And we're doing something important that, affects other people's lives.
I wish every officer/person in command felt that way and did things to carry out that ideal, because I feel like that's something that's very lacking in the army, especially because we have a compulsory service. Not everyone can always get an amazing, quote unquote, amazing job, and some people are just stuck in jobs that they don't want to do, like
Completely.
you said.
And they somehow go up the ranks,
Yeah.
and they don't do the job in the right way, and it sucks.
So I wish that more people would actually carry out that ideal in the army. I think that's very lacking.
That's part of the problems with compulsory service.
Yeah.
Anyways, Protective Edge, we were in Hebron, the first time ever I was in a violent riot when in front of me were 16,000 people throwing rocks and Molotov cocktails at me.
Mm-hmm.
It was insane. It was a war zone, throughout the town there, the Palestinian cops that in Oslo agreement got Kalashnikovs from us, AK-47s from the Israeli government. They fired upon us. It was crazy. It was something that people didn't talk about in the press, but it was insane. The one time, I'm just running through it, there was a lot of situations. We had a stand that was called the police blockage, Chassam Shotel, and they approached this place where it had magnometers, to check if you have any knives on you, etc., for the Palestinians who came into the Jewish neighborhoods. And the one guy was used as a diversion. He came with a big box of metallic objects and acted as if he didn't understand Hebrew, and walked in, walked out, and the thing's beeping.
Distracting you.
Exactly. And while he was doing that, some other Palestinians poured gasoline on the stand from the other side. We didn't see them, and lit it on fire.
Wow.
And then when the guys that were there, I wasn't there, it was a sergeant from a different platoon, was there with his soldier. When they went to respond, to try see who's attacking the stand, they shot fireworks at them, but these powerful fireworks, so it's literally a gun.
Wow.
And then the whole stand
I'm thinking of like fireworks,
burnt. No, like
Yom
so imagine
Ha'atzmaut
fireworks like Yom Ha'atzmaut, just instead of flying up in the sky,
it's flying at you.
someone.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Insane. Dangerous.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the first time that I shot live rounds at terrorists as well, in a couple of occasions. That was pretty rough. You have
pretty rough
12-year-old kids who come and throw Molotov cocktails at you, and you honestly don't know if you want to.
How are you supposed to? How are you supposed to deal with 12-year-old?
How do you deal with a 12-year-old that comes and throws a Molotov cocktail and tries to kill you?
It's a very conflicting thought process,
weird,
because someone's trying to kill you, but it's a kid.
He's trying to kill you. He's trying to kill your friends, and
it's a child.
There are adults that do it as well, but there are young people who come and do it as well.
That was also a very common theme in Protective Edge with media against the Palestinians, that there were a lot of cartoons and comics pictured Palestinians hiding behind children and rockets hitting children, which is also something that we faced in reality.
Completely, because even not in Gaza, in Gaza it happens a lot, but in Judah and Samaria, you have these 12-year-old kids that their parents push them forward and say, we want him to be a shaheed. We want him to die fighting these devils. But you're sending a 12-year-old kid to die, to burn people, to throw Molotov cocktails at people.
And that's how they educate their
people children. Sometimes say Israel's doing stuff against the international law, they're doing war crimes. It's illegal to shoot missiles at civilians, and that's what the Gazans are doing day in, day out.
But people choose to ignore that.
And it's illegal to throw Molotov cocktails and burn people alive. But then if a soldier responds and fires and and like the IDF's
then it's wrong.
rules of engagement are, if he threw the bottle, you're not allowed to shoot him anymore. Once he's done throwing the Molotov cocktail, there is no more shooting.
The attacker, let's
You're
say, doesn't
only
have
allowed
the
to
item
shoot him while
in his
he has
hand.
the Molotov cocktail lit in his hand.
Right.
And even then, you have to warn him that you're going to shoot him before you shoot him.
You have to warn him. You have to shoot him first at the feet or knees.
Feet, knee and down, and only
And
then
only
you're allowed
then-
to shoot.
So there's so many stages before we actually shoot to kill, let's say, and
that's
we're
why,
still wrong.
And that while there's a majority of Palestinians that are shot in their legs and down, and every single one of them, I can promise you, was warned before he was shot.
Absolutely. That's just our protocol.
It is?
But we're still in the wrong, you know?
That's for a different conversation.
Yeah,
as well.
it's for another day.
Anyway, so we finished in Hebron. It was a rough time. From there, we went to Nablus for another 4 months. Then we were in the Bikar for 4 months. That's the Jordan Valley. Then we were back in Shechem again. A lot of arrests, a lot of riots, a lot of live rounds.
The usual.
It was just a rough time. And then I decided that just before I got released, that I didn't fulfill my personal ideology. I wanted to promote myself as well, besides doing this help for the society,
What do you
etc.
mean?
I felt like I could go to a special unit and get the special unit training,
But you declined it.
which I declined at the beginning of my service.
So how did you want to get back to it?
So I did Tofes 55 like you did,
Towards the end of your service?
just before I got released. And I did the tryouts for the pilot's course, which included a week of tryouts.
But how did they let you at the end of
They
your
do.
service?
They do. For pilot's
Okay.
course, they allow
That's interesting.
anybody that fits.
Didn't know that.
I did the tryouts as if I was before the army. They treated us as
Like Filonim.
before as Malshabim. Like
Yeah,
people
Malshabim,
before the
right.
army. I had another guy who was a sergeant from Maglan, from a special unit, that also finished the Protective Edge, was in Gaza, did a lot of special missions there. That was with me, an Australian guy that became a fighter pilot in the end.
In Shesha?
No, he became a fighter pilot,
Oh.
a F-35 pilot.
Okay.
We both finished the tryouts. I started the course in my paid service in Keva. I did 6 months there, and after 6 months and 15 flights of being in Keva as if I'm a rookie, as a green Tiron,
Right.
I was found not fit because of my flight level.
Okay.
And that's where I finished my military service.
So do you feel like you satisfied more or less your...
I felt like that was the best time in my military service.
Those 4 months?
Those 4 months. I felt like...
Not all of the things that you did and all the things that you went through.
I think that everything that I did and that I went through built my personality.
Oh, no doubt.
I think that was the time that I worked a lot inner towards myself, as opposed to throughout my compulsory service where everything was, okay, there's something else to deal with. We need to, just ignore the situation, carry on, kind of.
But that's also something that you do with yourself. You build and strengthen that ability to say,
Completely.
okay, let's just go forward and not look back and not think about
Completely.
what happened.
And when I was in pilot's course, although you don't have time for anything, you're busy all day, all night, I felt like I had enough time to think with myself and kind of look back to my service.
Okay.
And, build my personality and deal with what I dealt throughout the service.
So in that time you were able to process everything.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine faintly all those things that you told me just now. I mean, part of it I heard already, but wow, still, that's wild, honestly.
But And this is important. We wanted to bring this up. I was speaking to Gal just before.
Yeah.
As lone soldiers and all the stuff that we did. I mean, it sounds impressive, but seeing a body is not something that's comfortable for anybody.
It's not fun.
You say you saw bodies. It's not easy, and the majority of bodies you see are not bodies in fit condition.
No.
And just seeing a body is not a fun thing.
It's really fucking weird. I mean, like, I didn't really go into it, but I also just kind of detached myself from the situation. I actually got a lot of questions from friends, like, how did you deal with that? Also, for a specific period of time, when we were at those sites, we had to take pictures and send them to all kinds of organizations, etc., etc. And I had a few friends who just found a lot of pictures on my phone of bodies, and it was really...
It's a weird situation.
It's a weird situation.
It's hard to explain it.
It's very difficult to explain, and really in the moment, you just kind of detach yourself. That's why also on my base, like high-ranking officers would pick soldiers to go with them to Hebron and do olim, and I was always the person to go among many people because I was just one of the most fit soldiers at dealing with these things. And yeah, I just kind of detached myself from the situation, like you said, and I don't know how I was able to do that, and I didn't even think about it. It just kind of happened. But still, it's not fun, and I can still see those images in my head today, even though it's 3 years later.
Completely. And as a combat soldier, and even though I didn't go into a war zone, and, there would be those that would say that Hebron within Protective Edge was a literal war zone with, live fire and stuff like that. It wasn't Gaza. And
it wasn't Gaza.
Any bombs going on around us, although we were in life and death situations. I've got friends that today are post-traumatic from the stuff that we did. And it's not like we did anything wrong. We were just in very extreme situations.
I wouldn't laktin what you went through just because it wasn't a war zone.
No, completely. And this is important. If we have any lone soldiers listening to us now, or any people who went through the stuff, or any people planning on making aliyah and going to the military, don't be ashamed to ask for help.
And don't be afraid of understanding that you're in a situation that you're not comfortable with, because everyone goes through uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, and this is like more of a formal thing, but we really, really wanted to bring it out there.
Podcast.
If you feel like you have stuff to deal with and you need the help, and you live in Israel, you can always phone 1201 from any phone. It's a organization by the name of Iran. It's Ezra Rishona Nafshit. It's kind of first aid for
and mental help.
They really, really do a good job, and take advantage of it. Don't deal with the stuff by yourself. Don't let it sink with you. It's not worth taking your life for stuff like that if you think about that.
And we also have another number from Nefesh B'Nefesh. It's an IDF lone soldier hotline. The number that we have listed is 1-800-714-100. We also have star 6563.
If you're in Israel.
If you're in the U.S., if you're a lone soldier, you're home, meyuchedet, whatever it may be, there's a U.S. number at 1-551-800-5440. And really just, if you feel like things are getting a little too much and feel like you don't have anyone to turn to or talk to, please, please, please use these numbers, because there's too many stories of people who hurt themselves, who take their own life, and we're just doing our best to try to avoid people getting into those situations by giving these numbers. And we obviously would like to stop these things from happening. Because
it's terrible, people go in and they become lone soldiers and they do the best they can, and it's rough. It's not easy. The army's a hard time,
And it's okay to admit that you're having a hard time.
It's not just okay, it's
it's normal.
It's completely normal. We all deal with stuff. The best and the best and the strongest are the strongest are the ones that break at the age of 40 and they don't know how to deal with stuff because they never asked for help.
So definitely don't be ashamed. And with that, we're going to end this very long episode.
Very long episode. We hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, we hope you didn't get tired and stop in the middle. And if you got this far, thank you
well
for listening.
Done, yeah.
We appreciate that.
Completely.
So thanks for listening. If you want to send any comments, requests, have any questions, comments, you can send us a message at hafhpodcast@gmail.com. We upload to all platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And just thanks for listening to this episode. We appreciate that you got this far, and we'll be talking to you guys next week.